Here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and my friend today is Dr. Ron Weiss because it is the third Friday of the month, which means it's time for The Doctor is In. Please welcome him to the show.
Hello, I am in. I am here.
Hello. Well, another wonderful plant-based doctor just moved to New Jersey. Have you connected with him yet?
Well, I did speak with him, Dr. Matt Letterman, briefly.
Yeah.
Was it by maybe I can't remember. Maybe it was I was communicating with him via text, but the
Yep. Well, you guys
I,
have to get together.
I I've crossed, being in the plant-based world, I've crossed paths with most of these icons, but never him and or Alona. And I know they just moved to Princeton, which is about 50 minutes from the farm. So they were excited and he's already here in Princeton, right?
He's already here, and it's actually Alona's birthday today.
It is.
Yeah, so maybe we can, I'll wish, I don't know if she watches, but happy birthday, Dr. Alona Polday.
Yes. Happy birthday, Dr. Alona Paul Day.
I'll tell her we wished her a happy birthday on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Excellent.
cool. Now we have two amazing plant-based doctors. See, Furman left, and we send one back to you.
One door opens, closes, another opens.
Yeah. Did you know that Dr. Furman is a triple threat?
Wow. So
So in show business, they call a triple threat somebody that acts, sings, and dances. Well, he doesn't necessarily act. He's an athlete. He came to the Plant Powered Party. He did comedy. He danced
I heard
and he sang. I mean,
he danced.
he danced and sang. I mean, he's
What
incredible.
what was he doing? What was he dancing? What
Well,
was he? What dance?
when we had a comedy show on Saturday night, and there was a singer that opened it up with a song "I Feel Good" with words that she made just for Dr. Furman, like a custom song parody. And he just got up and he just started dancing, and he was wonderful. And he told
Really?
jokes. Yep. And
Really?
then yeah, and then when it came time to do his talk, he played his when he was an ice skater, a world champion ice skater. He played that. And then when he did a Q&A with his daughter, Kara, he sang this song that he wrote for her. He's amazing. I mean,
Yeah, I heard that song. Yeah, amazing.
I've only seen
Multi.
him as a doctor. I didn't know he had all these other talents.
So did he play the? Did he play the those old reels of him skating with his sister?
Yes, and they were amazing.
So
Just
you can see, like, I mean, he was right,
he was
right. I mean,
amazing.
how and
Amazing.
coordinated, and it's basically dancing on two steel
Right.
blades,
Who knew? I mean,
right? So
I did not see this side of it. And thank goodness he had a wonderful time and he's coming back next year. He was amazing. So much
good.
fun. Who knew he was this much fun? But
Yeah,
I'm guessing you're fun.
I am fun.
Yeah, you
I
seem
am fun.
fun to me. I mean, I
I
think
think so. I like to do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different interests. I mean, basically, you could take me anywhere. I like to learn about different kinds of things and do different things.
aren't you a musician yourself?
I am. I have actually a degree in piano performance from Rutgers. That's what I. So my two degrees were in botany and in piano. So, and although I'm primarily a musician, that's my great artistic drive in me. Um, when I was, let's see, when I was in my late 30s, I I discovered Argentine tango, and I was so enthralled with it that I turned my apartment into a tango studio, and it became like an obsession for me. And I hired my own teacher. I was going to milongas, which is the Argentine tango dances, and the thing I learned was um, sort of like as a pianist, the rhythm is in your hands. And I somehow had to learn to get the rhythm to transfer it from my upper extremities into my lower extremities. And that was kind of hard. But I
Nice.
love, yeah, I love the, right, dancing was fantastic.
Well, I never dance. I have two left feet. We didn't even have dancing at my wedding. We had karaoke, but I was just at Camp Weiser. It's this camp in the Santa Cruz Mountains for adults with cancer. And I got to bring 6 people with me. It was the funnest weekend I ever had. And on Saturday night, they had a hoedown and we had square dancing. And it was so much fun. We did it for like 2 hours. It was really good exercise too. I had no idea how fun dancing was.
Were you able to do it?
Yes, because we had
As
a
far
caller. We
as
had a caller that specialized in beginners. So we didn't, so we learned the, the Alaman, the do-si-do, the promenade. And so he was such a good, he's like, when I Googled him, he was like the #1 caller in the United States,
yeah.
this guy, Andy Wilson. And I'm trying to hire him to do a local event. He was amazing. And just the things you could do, like with weaving. I mean, I don't know how it works, but it does. Like where we're all, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a pillar of lifestyle medicine. It's social connection, right?
Yeah.
You're connecting with other human beings.
Right, because it was just so much fun, so much fun. Yeah. Well, okay, we've had enough fun. No, just kidding.
Right? Of
You want to answer some questions?
course.
Okay, we've got some doctor. Put your doctor hat on, and we'll get these right away. I just have to. They came in through a thingy. All right, here we go. So the first one is anonymous, please. Okay. Well, then we're going to keep it anonymous. I would love to know if Dr. Weiss could help me with my decision to stop Prolia injections after about 8 years. I'm a 77-year-old female, active daily 2-mile walks, recently added 8-pound weight vest, 50 jumps each leg, Peloton rides. I realize no real weight bearing benefit, resistance training and other cardio. I have serious stamina, low heart rate. I've been an athlete my whole life. I ran for 20 years and then switched completely to stationary biking more than 20 years ago to save my joints. I'm 61. Oh, no, she said 77 years old, but she's 61 and a half inches, 104 pounds. 61 and a half inches is 5 foot 1 and a half, I think, right?
That's a good, her body mass index is
Yeah.
probably about 20,
Yeah, my doctor reports I
21.
have had small and steady improvements to my T scores, but I'm still osteoporotic.
So, yes, this is a common scenario that we see in patients who come here to the practice that they've been taking a osteoporosis drug for years. And I think as it pertains to Prolia, of course, I don't prescribe these drugs, but I believe on the package insert or the information from the drug company, basically it says don't stop it. I think thus this young lady's question. Basically, it says don't stop it. You can't stop it, or else you're going to lose all the the benefit that you've accrued over these years from increased bone density. Um, but I have not found that to be true on our patients who have stopped Prolia as long as they replace it with lifestyle bone building programs. And so, just a number of things to go over. So, osteoporosis is, um, and it's a younger sister which is osteopenia, which is like pre-osteoporosis, is extremely common in postmenopausal women. And actually, when I usually get at least I get a bone density test on women when they hit menopause just to see where they are. And I don't get these tests to put them on drugs. I get these tests to um, basically to inspire them to commit to higher level lifestyle habits to make their bones and muscles healthy. Because I believe that if you see a result that's suboptimal or not desirable, it does motivate a lot of people to improve their habits. So the bottom line is that when I do these tests, it is the rare individual who I see as normal bones. Most women's bones are abnormal, either osteopenia or osteoporosis. And the other thing I've noticed is if nothing is done over the oncoming decade, it basically the bone density continues to slide downhill. So, um, the question poser seems to have been an athlete all of her life. Um, are there specific exercises or sports that promote bone density or build bone density that she can use in instead of the Prolia? Well, yes, there most likely are. And we'll talk about that in a second. But our bone building practice, our bone building program that we engage with patients here in our primary care practice basically has, let's see, one, two, three main components. Number one, we make sure that the patients are eating enough protein and, in parentheses, calcium. I'll explain that in a moment. Number two, we make sure that their vitamin D levels are sufficient enough. And that we do by encouraging them to take 2,000 units of vitamin D every day, D3. Number three, that they are engaged in certain loading activities or loading exercises that will build their bones. And so when we check off each of those boxes and we hold the patients accountable and we help them and coach them to do these things and do them consistently, we have found out that even though they stop Prolia, that at the very least they can keep their bone mineral scores on the DEXA scan stable without declining further. And then usually they can actually even improve them at least the same at the same rate that Prolia does. I think the danger, the problem with stopping Prolia, as the drug company tells you, is if you do nothing, if you're just relying on this drug and you stop the drug and you don't do any of the other things to build your bones, yeah, of course you will get worse, because the natural history of osteoporosis is to continue to getting worse as you do not exercise, you do not have enough protein, your vitamin D levels are insufficient. So let's tackle the exercise quotient first, because this young lady who asked the question refers to it. She's been an athlete all of her life, which is great. That's always money in the bank. She seems to be very cardiovascularly fit and has good cardiovascular conditioning from her heart rate and her other metrics. But not all exercise has been shown or demonstrated to help with bone building. And the lady made a reference to or inferred that she has been doing the Peloton bike, I believe, the bike. There's actually, we have data that people who are big cyclists, like these long distance cyclists, endurance cyclists, or road cyclists, that may be a risk factor for getting demineralization of bones. Perhaps it's the long hours of sitting, which is not a weight-bearing exercise. We're not sure, but in any event, that's why I think in her question, she commented that she's going to move away from that. I would, if I were to select exercises to build my bones, to replace drugs to build them, I don't think I would concentrate on biking or sitting and doing seated exercises. I would try to do loading exercises on the axial skeleton, on your spine and your hips. And so that's why this young lady talked about jumping. I mean, right? Jumping, when you go up and down in a vertical direction, that's maximum loading on your hips and your spine. That jump when you hit the ground basically sends vibrations up through your skeleton, which could cause tiny, tiny little microfractures, which are good. The little vibrations cause weak parts in your bone to have a tiny microscopic fracture, which then your bone building system will go eat out and then replace over and re-cement over with brand new, thicker bone. And that's how we build our bones. So jumping has definitely been shown to be a good exercise to do for that. And I think she said hopping. We do two things for our patients. One of them, which I think was promoted by Dr. Greger in his osteoporosis webinar, was hopping. This was a randomized control study. Hopping on one foot 50 times, and then hopping on the other foot 50 times has been shown to be beneficial in building bones over 6 months. What else do we do? We have our patients, those who can do them, also do jump squats. We have them in a squatting position and then jump up as high as they can and then land on their feet again and then sink into a squatting position, because this kind of position builds the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the pelvis and hips, which then anchor onto your hip bones. So that offers some added benefit. And we advise our patients to do 10 of those jump squats. If they can do them every day, if they can't every other day, but you have to be careful with them because you have to make sure your form is right. Before anyone does this, I would just make sure they work with a trainer to ensure that they don't hurt themselves or get plantar fasciitis or hurt their knees. So I think that's a good exercise to do. Let's see what else. And then building your musculature in general by lifting things, lifting weights, lifting bags of cement. If you're working on a farm like we are, we pound posts into the ground with sledges, pulling things. Anything that is load bearing that lifts weights. I often talk to my patients about rucking. Rucking is loading a pack with, it's usually, this lady is using 8 pounds in a weighted vest, but this, you can go to 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds. You can put loading on your axial, on your skeletal frame, and that's a good thing to do. You can go outside and go hike through the forest or walk down the street with these packs on. So that's the exercise component. We talked about making sure people get enough protein, and the protein we like to see is for the average sized woman, for this woman's size, which is 5'1", I would say at least 60 or 70 grams of protein a day. And not by taking protein supplements, but by eating whole plant foods. And most of those in that category would be the legumes, because they're the superstars of protein. We have to remember, as people get older, their protein requirements go up, actually, because whatever protein you're eating as you age, your absorption becomes less efficient. So even though you're eating it, you may not be taking most of it inside to your body. and your bones and muscles, they're one unit, they operate together. You need adequate protein to build your muscles so that they don't wither away and get thin and sarcopenic, or it means poor muscle as you age. You want to keep those muscle beds vigorous and well developed so they can pull on your bones, pull on the anchors and build bones. So ensure getting enough protein will ensure that you do that. So we actually go over with each of our patients and measure their protein intake, and we set these standards for them. Um, let's see, and of course the vitamin D we talked about. That's thought to be important. Last thing is I always look, we do balance testing on our patients and fitness testing, because most falls, basically when people fracture their hips, when they're elderly, it's due to poor balance. It is not necessarily due to demineralization of bones. So if you make sure your balance is good and you maintain it, and through what's called natural movements, you don't have to worry about falls, and then you don't have to worry about fractures, where the bone mineralization takes a second seat to the balance. And I think
Well,
that's all I have to say.
nice. That was very thorough and comprehensive. Thank you. Next question is from Donna. I'm at a healthy weight and I work out every day, but my A1C keeps creeping up and is now at a 6. Dr. Weiss, what do you advise that I do to get it down?
Hmm. Well, do you have a feeling that most of the people who are writing these questions who don't say, do you think that they're whole food plant-based or
Oh,
eat a
I well,
diet of whole?
the first person I don't recognize the name, the one that asked to be anonymous, but I do know this person, and I actually saw her in Vegas, and she is at a very healthy weight, and I believe she eats the way we eat.
Yeah. So I have a subset of patients. They are whole plant food eaters. They are healthy. Um, and in our patients here, I get a number of tests, metabolic tests that look that have provide a window into their sort of metabolic process. One of them is an insulin resistance test. Another one is their sugar, like, and I'm sure everyone is familiar with this, like when you go to the lab and they check a blood and what's your fasting sugar. So one is an insulin resistance test. Another is the basic plasma glucose at any point in time. Another one is what's something which is called the diabetes risk index. What is your chance of getting diabetes for the rest of your life? And that's based on measurement of branched chain amino acids and other complicated things. And then the last one, which is the gold standard of what this lady is talking about, is the A1C. That's the gold standard that doctors use to see if you are a diabetic, or you pre-diabetic, are you not a diabetic. And this lady who's asking the question says she has her A1C has risen to 6.0, correct, AJ?
Yes, 6.
6.0.
Hmm.
So just so everyone can understand, uh, here is the scale for A1C and the reference ranges. If to be considered a non-diabetic with normal sugars, it is said that you have to have a hemoglobin A1C, which is the gold standard of diagnosis of diabetes and normal sugars. You have to have an A1C of 5.6% and less. Okay. Once you get to 5.7% to 6.4%, that is considered early diabetes or pre-diabetes. And over 6.4%, that's considered diabetes. So this young lady is 6.0%, that is pre-diabetes. And here's what I was about to say in the beginning. I have a subset of patients who are eating whole plant foods, and that's why AJ wanted to know what she was eating. And I've seen them have A1Cs 5.8, 5.7, 5.9. I even have a lady who is 6.0. And yet, all of the other measurements, those three other measurements that indicate the handling of glucose, what their diabetes risk is in the future, how insulin resistant are, they're normal, if not excellent. It's just the A1C that's out of line. All of these people are of an excellent weight. They're thin. They're so it's not like they have weight to lose. They're eating plants, and yet they have this pre-diabetic A1C. So on each of these patients, I snapped a continuous glucose monitor, CGM. For those of us who don't know what those are, a CGM is one of those little patches that you put on your skin. It has a tiny needle on it, goes into your tissues, and it can constantly, from moment to moment, monitor your sugars and what happens to them. And what we noticed in these patients who had the mildly elevated A1C is they had problems, even though they didn't have a problem with their fasting glucose in the morning, they didn't have a problem with their insulin resistance, they didn't have a problem with anything else, with their future risk of diabetes. They had a problem with postprandial sugars. It was isolated to that their sugars rose inappropriately as soon as they ate. And then like for an hour afterwards. And then at the second hour mark, they would fall back down to normal, essentially. So they had, generally speaking, most of these people who seemed to be like you had a quick spike in their after eating, immediately upon eating, in their blood sugars, then they would normalize. So we went through exercises with these people, food exercises, like food elimination exercises, and for most of them, we got to improve their A1C back down to normal when they cut out certain things. AJ, guess what the number one thing was that we found was problematic in our whole plant eaters that caused a pre-diabetic A1C, and yet everything else with their sugars and metabolism was okay, their weight was okay.
I'm going to guess maybe oil.
Number one food item, guess what it was?
Well, I'm going to guess oil.
No,
No.
bread.
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 Bread. Wow.
Bread and more refined carbohydrates.
Interesting.
So when they cut out things like bread and maybe rice and things like that, they did much better, and they were able to bring down their A1C. Most of our patients, they weren't eating oil to begin with because they were eating, they were eating whole plant foods. But some of them started eating more Ezekiel bread. They would start doing, stuff like that. Dave's Killer's bread, and we found that was true. And so, in any event, that's my suggestion to you. This young lady who's asking the question, just for your own edification, you may want to see if you can have your doctor give you a prescription for a continuous glucose monitor and see if what I'm telling you is true, and then try to modify or refine your diet to see which foods are causing this bump, and then I would avoid them. Uh, Maybe they were vegan cookies or baked goods, or maybe they were eating too much dried fruit, Chef AJ. But for most of them, we could get it down. Here's the other thing I noticed about this subset of patients with a mildly elevated A1C and nothing else, no other risk factors. AJ, over years, I've never seen them advance. Whereas regular diabetics, if they don't change, their A1C tends to get consecutively worse with each year, passing a year. These patients, they seem to go nowhere. They would hang around with an A1C of 5.8 or 5.7 or 5.9, but they would never become diabetic. So that was somewhat reassuring. Here's the last thing I would recommend. Um, you could, um, after you do these experiments with the continuous glucose monitor, and you see which foods were maybe making your postprandial or post-eating sugars spike, what you could then do is, as soon as you eat, you could jog in place for like 5 minutes, do jumping jacks, do that, the jump rope, right? The jumping that we were talking about earlier for 5 minutes. And because that has a powerful effect. If you attach something like that to eating, that will also cause your postprandial or after eating blood sugars to sink quickly. So you could try that.
Great, thank you. Dr. Weiss, you gave a very comprehensive answer to the osteoporosis question, but somebody is asking, would you ever recommend osteoporosis medication to a patient? Because most plant-based doctors say seems to avoid them, but every time they go to the non-plant-based doctors, they want to push them on them.
I think I prescribed it once. This was to a patient whose bones were so they were one of the worst bone densities I've ever seen. They'd already fractured one of their thoracic vertebrae, their spine, and I was afraid they would have more fractures, and they were in severe pain from this. So, and the patient was not willing to do the protocol. So basically, when you see me prescribing drugs, which is unusual, it most of the time it is because the patient is either not willing or is just unable to access the lifestyle recommendations. That's why. But no, if somebody can jump, if someone can take vitamin D, if they can eat the protein, if they want to do that, I would not prescribe it because of all the reasons I told you. You're much better off just letting your body fix its bones and not taking a potentially dangerous drug.
Great, thank you.
Bones are living tissues. People think of it, oh, they see a skeleton, oh, this is like a rock. It's an inert, dead, hard rock. They're alive. They're living cells in there that can build just like it was broken down. They can rebuild. Set them to work.
Thank you. Okay, and the same person is asking, would you ever recommend a magnesium supplement, and if so, which one? What kind?
A magnesium supplement for bones?
Well, I don't know, maybe just in general.
No, because I tell people to eat food. There's a food has a lot of magnesium. Whole plant foods have a lot of magnesium, like legumes and see, I don't fruits. I don't, in general, except for a few items that we can be deficient in. If we don't have a natural deficiency in these things, I don't tell people to supplement with them. I just tell them to eat. So magnesium is not something that I think that if you're eating correctly, you'll get plenty of magnesium. Not necessary. And, there are, mm, for those women listening who in sometime in their life took calcium, um, yes, their bones are made of calcium. Yes, they are made from other minerals like magnesium. But, when you take a when you take a focused dose of a mineral uh, in a relatively large amount, it could cause problems for you, increased inflammation that could provoke problems like heart attacks. And for years, doctors told women to take calcium, right, for the bones, because bones are made out of calcium. And it was discovered that basically that's risky because it may increase a menopausal women's heart attack rate. So who knows? Maybe magnesium would do the same thing if you took it in a pill form. I worry about these things.
I was prescribed it. I don't know why. When magnesium glycinate to take at night.
Because people, there are many people who come into me say that it helps to induce sleep.
It really
And
does. I mean, I
I
wasn't having trouble sleeping, but I forgot why they gave it to me, but it does.
I think that's why people take it.
Nice. Oh, you have a nice haircut, by the way. I forgot to mention. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. I got them all cut, AJ.
Looks very nice. Okay, so Randy says, please recommend a protocol for getting off a 20-year Prilosec regime. I understand clean gold hammer eating, but when I've tried before, I absolutely have to eliminate berries, grapes, and most fruits. Spices, cinnamon for sure, tomato products, tofu, mustard, vinegar, and even if I do this and go cold turkey on the Prilosec, on day 4, I'm crying in front of a bowl of plain brown rice because of pain.
Yeah,
Somewhere deep in my heart, I still believe I could get off Prilosec. Do you?
somewhere, somewhere deep in my heart. Yes, because I do believe the body is a self-healing machine. And I believe somewhere deep inside of us, there is not a place for Prilosec. Not that Prilosec is not doing something, it's preventing you from getting heartburn, but our bodies weren't born knowing Prilosec. Our bodies were designed to have us feel good and not have heartburn, handling our acid secretions and foods that's coming in there. It knows how to do that. When people have taken Prilosec for a while, we have evidence that the longer you take it, you may become, quote, addicted, end quote, to it. In other words, not that it's addictive like cocaine or even cigarette smoke, but your upper GI tract becomes dependent upon it. And a lot of people, when they try to come off of it, they can't because their symptoms get even worse than they ever were. So I think, for those listeners who are not familiar, who've never taken this or don't really know about Prilosec, you may be asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? It's just heartburn. If this lady just to take one heartburn pill a day and feel fine, why does she want to get off of it? And the reason why she wants to get off of it is because Prilosec and its relatives, like Prevacid, like Nexium, and these are all generic now. They're called pantoprazole, anything with OLE at the end, omeprazole. Um, these drugs have been shown to be increasingly dangerous and harm us during our life. Um, I was just reading studies. We were talking about osteoporosis before, AJ.
Mhm.
I was reading that there's new information coming out that polypharmacy, in other words, the more drugs you're on as you get older and you become a senior citizen, the more likely you are to fall. And it was thought, people originally said, well, oh yeah, that's because the people are giving elderly patients antidepressants or things to make them drowsy or affect their balance. Guess what? One of the number one drugs are on the top of that list, omeprazole. Omeprazole makes people fall. How? Not sure. But it's one of the drugs that's at the top of the list. So you don't want to increase your risk of falling because what did I tell you earlier with that osteoporosis question? It's falling. It's loss of balance and the likelihood to fall, not necessarily the demineralization of your bones that places the greatest risk of you fracture. So yeah, I wouldn't want to take omeprazole. It increases your risk of falling as you get older. And separately, we have found out it increases your risk of getting osteoporosis. Maybe because you're not able to absorb vital nutrients to build your muscles and bones because it's shutting down the acid pool in your stomach. We have also found that it probably alters your gut microbiome by allowing mouth bacteria and other bacteria from the outside world, like Clostridium difficile spores, to pass through that acid bath of your stomach, which is supposed to kill them off. And then all kinds of bacteria start inappropriately seeding your lower GI tract. That's not good. Um, and then in recent times, there's even some information that perhaps it increases the chance of getting dementia, Alzheimer's, and heart attacks and strokes. So that's why the listener wants to get off of omeprazole, just so everyone understands. Here's what I would do. First of all, given that what I told you, that a lot of people can become dependent after taking it for many years, I would definitely not go cold turkey on the omeprazole. You need to go very, very slowly, very, very gradually, because remember, you're going to get what's called rebound reflux. I don't care what you're eating. Well, obviously, eating oils and fats and animal foods will make it even worse. But I've seen even people eating plants, it will get worse if you immediately cut off the omeprazole. I would vary in small increments, slowly, slowly decrease it over time. When I say slow increments over time, I'm talking about 6 months, maybe. Who knows? Maybe a year, 6 months. We did this with a patient of ours. It took a year. It took a year to get them off. They were on very high levels. Um, what else would I do? I would definitely not eat the things that you know are provocative. Like, and this can be on an individual basis. Like, some people can eat citrus fruits and oranges and they're okay with them. You'll know if you can eat that, you're fine, go ahead and eat it. But if, like you said, if you eat an onion or tomato and you start getting heartburn, don't eat them. Stay away from them. I would start off by just eating the foods that you don't know provoke it. Um, what else would I do? Um, I would make sure that the head of your bed, you should get one of those foam um, wedges. You can get them, they're cheap, like $30 on Amazon, at a 30-degree angle of foam wedge, and make sure to sleep on that every night. I would make sure to sleep on that because when at nighttime, that's when you are most at risk for acid, stomach acid to wash into your esophagus. Of course, because you're lying down. And the fact that you have even acid washing over your esophagus to begin with tells us that the door that closes off between your stomach and your esophagus that's supposed to stop the acid is left open. So if it's left open and you're upright sitting in a chair, or like me standing, of course gravity will bring the acid down, but when you lie down flat, that acid is going to your esophagus. So don't lie down flat. Lie down at an angle and sleep like that. What else can we say? I would make sure, it sounds like you're eating a diet of whole plant foods, doctor, you've got Goldhammer, obviously, but, and maybe I'm preaching to the choir. I get a feeling I am, but for anyone listening out there, make sure there's not a drop of fat in your food, because, and when I say a drop of fat, I'm talking about processed fat like oil, because oil alone, extra virgin olive oil, I've seen that cause GERD. When processed oils or fats end up in your stomach, it sends signals for that door, that gastroesophageal sphincter, to open up more. You want it tight. What else?
I
Uh,
appreciate you saying that because so many people in the plant-based world now are saying oil is good and we should eat it.
no, no, that's a good reason. I've seen people who are only eating plants And they were eating good, but when they had oil, their GERD came back. When they got rid of the oil, it did not. Um, and while I'm on that,
So Dr. Weiss, Donna, who was the one that asked about the A1C of 6, ask, are potatoes okay if she has an A1C of 6?
I'm sorry, you were a little garbled there. Can you
Sorry
say
about
that
that.
again?
The lady Donna who asked about her A1C of 6, she had a follow-up question because she's watching live, and the follow-up question was about, is it okay then for her to eat potatoes?
Uh,
Are potatoes
well,
okay for an A1C?
white potatoes are now known to increase A1Cs. So I would say no. You look, you should do an experiment yourself. Eat a white potato and then check your sugar an hour later and see what it is. And then eat a blue potato, a blue flesh potato, and then an hour later see what your sugar is. Generally speaking, I would expect the blue potato, which does not increase A1Cs, for you to do much better. So if you want to eat a potato, but you do the experiments yourself. Get a blue one, get a white one, see where you fall out. I'm expecting the white potato not to fare well with your blood sugar.
Nice. This next question, it kind of sounds
Oh,
like,
but you know what? I'm not done.
okay, I'm sorry, but you just, Dr. Weiss, face forward because when you're not, when you move position,
Yes,
you get garbled. So stay still.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. There is some evidence, AJ, that salt may increase GERD symptoms. So I know you're a whole food plant-based, but you go out to a vegan restaurant, whatever, there may be some salt there. You should really be careful to the nth degree. If you really want to get off that omeprazole, please make sure you have to be not a grain of salt, not a drop of oil. Go on that go on the wedge at night. Um, and the last thing I would recommend is I have used in the past deglycerinated licorice, DGL, licorice root that's deglycerinated. There's a potential substance called uh, glycerin, which is in the licorice root, which can cause high blood pressure. It's a big thing. But this is the licorice root that's been treated to remove that potential problem. And I have had patients where I put them on this, and it has helped them when they're coming off to reduce their symptoms. And then over time, they do adjust on the lower dose of omeprazole. Then we can knock it down a little bit more. They're on the DGL, they're doing their lifestyle habits or whatever, and eventually they do come off. Try it.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing I've tried too, which I've had success with, uh, slippery elm bark, which is a native tree. Making a tea out of the slippery elm bark. You can buy it like in an herb store. It's a native tree. Just drinking that tea, it helps to increase mucus production in the esophagus and the stomach, which adds as an additional coating layer.
You
And
mentioned
it has
DGL.
no caffeine in it. Yeah, go
You
ahead.
mentioned DGL. Would eating just licorice be good? Because when I had my 66 days of pancreatitis, which I'll never forget, the True North doctors put me on the DGL.
Um, uh, the problem with just eating licorice is that you could rarely get, it would be really difficult from my experiences to actually get licorice root. Most of the licorice that you buy that is candy, which we love, is just junk. I mean,
Yeah,
it
but I
has
make my own black
artificial
licorice.
color.
I make my own SOS-free black licorice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it have real licorice root in
It's
it?
I use fennel. I use fennel seeds, so maybe not.
Okay. The problem with licorice root is that glycerin, that molecule, you don't need that much of it in the average person to cause blood pressure problems. You could conceivably eat like a pack of licorice and you could have a blood pressure problem. So, I tell people to get what you took, which is the deglycerinated licorice, and it comes in tab.
Yeah.
It works. I've seen it
Great.
work over and over.
Thank you.
Did you find it helpful for your pancreatitis?
I think time was the most helpful thing, and not taking Keytruda for 3 months was the most
Yes,
helpful.
yes.
I go back into treatment on Tuesday at half dose, at dosing by weight.
Good,
So hopefully
good.
that'll be better. So, but it is working because my tumor is smaller and my SUV is 24% down. So
Beautiful.
yay, Keytruda.
Yay.
So this
Yay, Truda. Yay, AJ.
Yeah, yay, Stanford. Thank you. This question from Laura kind of sounds like the beginning of a joke. A male in his early 70s walks into your office. He's on multiple meds for two previous cardiac events, a pacemaker, and recently type 2 diabetes. He's still eating a sad diet, but because of the diabetes booklets he was given, he now eats monk fruit and sugar-free processed foods, but he fears carbs like corn. He has lost 20 pounds and blood sugar has gone from 250 to 115. How would you advise this patient?
Well, I mean, just briefly, I would tell him that he's experiencing what usually happens in a person eating a low carbohydrate diet, which is upfront, the sugars will improve, he will lose weight, right? And this is why keto and paleo and Atkins kinds of diets are so popular, because upfront you do see, improvements in the metrics you just mentioned. However, we know that in longer terms, what is this person's main problem, right? That he had two heart attack events or cardiovascular events. At the end of the day, that's what's going to end up killing him because he's already had two. And we know that eating a diet which is low in whole plant foods, high in processed foods like processed sweeteners and animal foods, have a devastating effect on cardiovascular mortality. They cause more heart attacks. And so that's what I would try to convince them of and say, look, your main problem is the heart. Do you want to help your heart? You're on all these medicines for it. Eat a diet of whole plant foods.
Perfect. I think we have one more question that well, we have plenty in the chat, but we do the submitted ones first. So guys, either join the Chef AJ
Yeah.
community or write us at the help desk. Um, where did this question go? Here you go. Uh, it doesn't say anonymous, so we'll say your name. Susan, if one has been iodine deficient for years and develops hypothyroidism, how long would it take to repair the thyroid by taking supplements? Does one have to stop taking iodine supplements a day before the lab test?
That's interesting. Um, First of all, my understanding with iodine is that trying to measure it in your blood is just not accurate, and that the best way is to get a sense of what your iodine status is to measure a urine iodine in like one test, a spot measurement. And that's what we do here in the practice. And I have found that, AJ, that whole food plant-based people who avoid SOS, right, who avoid iodized, take more salt, that there's a lot of us who are iodine deficient, so much so that it's like zero, that the lab can't find the iodine on the urine iodine test. And that's why we tell people that they should eat a couple of sheets of nori every day, or a teaspoon of dulse, or a teaspoon of aramay, or wakame. So, because that, if you eat those every day, besides having other benefits, of which sea vegetables have innumerable benefits, it does give you the iodine. If you can't or will not do that, you could take an iodine pill. So, most people, from what I've noticed, who have slow thyroids, they don't have a problem with low iodine levels. I did find a person like 2 or 3 years ago who had a slow thyroid. He was on hypothyroid, and he happened to be iodine deficient too. And when we replaced the iodine and gave him the supplement, his hypothyroidism disappeared and his thyroid became normal. What can I say? So there probably are a few people out there that are suffering from hypothyroidism due to non-existent iodine levels, because you have to remember iodine is critical for your thyroid. It's the thyroid is the only organ or tissue in the body that cares about iodine. It's useless for all your other organs, but your thyroid takes it and makes the thyroid hormone. So that's why it's so important. So for this lady, I would give it a shot, and it should work. In this patient that I saw, a month, 6 weeks later, he had normal thyroid. So he took the iodine every day, 150 micrograms every day, and you could eat seaweed, it's the same thing. And 6 weeks later, we didn't have to put him on a thyroid, levothyroxine or Synthroid, and all his thyroid function tests were normal, and his iodine level was normal. So I would say 6 weeks if you want to try it. If you replace your iodine and your thyroid still didn't go up, it's not going to be the iodine, although I would still take the iodine. The last thing I have to say is we have about 20%, 10 to 20% of our patients who come to the practice who have hypothyroidism. Their thyroid is too slow, and they either are threatened with taking the thyroid hormone or they're already on it. And after they convert to a diet of whole plant foods, they can either get off their thyroid hormone supplement or significantly reduce it, because I believe eating whole plant foods somehow increases blood flow or uh, helps to revitalize maybe portions of the thyroid that are marginal, but their thyroid activity does improve in a minority of these patients who transfer from an omnivorous to a whole plant food diet.
Nice. Well, Dr. Weiss, you got through a lot of great topics today.
We did. And
Yeah.
can I say one last thing? Because I'm running a little late. I got to leave.
You can say
AJ,
anything you want.
I just been thinking, you know, I, we don't get to talk as much as I would like. We get to talk once a month, and, sometimes somewhere in between. But I have to tell you this, for a few years, because you took me into your confidence for a few years before you made your announcement, and your lung cancer was increasing inexorably, right? It just kept getting bigger. AJ, for the first time, it is reduced.
Yeah. And
It is.
you know that Tuesday is 3 years. Tuesday will be 3 years.
I know. It is reduced. You are on a good path. Keep going. You should be very proud of all the suffering you went through, the pain, whatever. But it's this Keytruda, it has helped you. That's why when you said thanks to Keytruda, you are an example of why we need modern medicine, right? We need ancient medicine that we evolved with plants, but sometimes this is the reason for modern medical science, because it's working.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mazel tov. I'm
Oh,
so excited for you. And, I hope we can find a moderate dose, which doesn't throw you into pancreatitis,
you.
but continues to
Or
make your
costochondritis.
cancer
It gives
shrivel.
you a lot. It gives you a lot of itises. All right.
Well, but it tells you, right, that it's so. Remember, when the body heals itself, it has to set up inflammation first. The inflammatory response is attract the healing. And basically, what it's doing is it's trying to get your immune system to notice and kill those cancer
Yeah.
cells.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Nice. Yeah. So
congratulations.
way different. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. We look forward to having you back next month. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ and Friends. Come back Monday for Dr. Brooke Goldner. She's going to be talking about healing fast, healing slow, and rapid recovery from autoimmune.